Whenever we teach, we make assumptions about how children learn, and I think it is important for each of us to think about what those assumptions are. It is common to teach according to how we were taught, how we were trained, or how other teachers teach, without thinking a lot about the assumptions behind these methods. But I think it is important for each of us as teachers to look deeply at the psychology of learning. So often I have seen teachers support children outside the classroom in one way and then use a very different approach when supporting children in the classroom. But children are children wherever they are, and they learn in basically the same way both inside the classroom and in their daily lives. Of course, the classroom has particular dynamics, and there are classroom management issues to consider. But I think our fundamental approach to supporting children needs to be consistent and compatible with however we think children learn. In this workshop, I can't look at every alternative approach, or even every aspect of the approaches that I will talk about, but I will give links to where you can find more information. I will focus on a few approaches and on key points related to those approaches that I think it is helpful for teachers of young learners to be aware of. First, behaviorism. Behaviorism was the dominant paradigm in psychology in the 1950s and 1960s. This was a time when in many countries educational systems were being rebuilt and reformed after the Second World War. And behaviorist approaches became ingrained in the classroom, and their influence has stayed with us ever since. For many teachers, behaviorist ways of teaching languages to young learners became a kind of common sense. Educational psychology has moved on since then. There have been at least two significant paradigm shifts since the 1950s. First, with what is sometimes called the cognitive revolution, and then with a big shift towards constructivism. But a lot of classroom practice is still rooted in behaviorism. It could also be argued that the development of neuroscience has led to another big shift, though I think developments in neuroscience so far are compatible with constructivism. So what is behaviorism? Well, it focuses on visible behavior and not on emotions or on the reasons behind behavior. A key element is that behavior can be conditioned. The two most well-known behaviorists are Pavlov and Skinner. Skinner's focus on conditioning through rewards has had a big influence on the way young learners have been taught ever since. In practical terms, what do teachers of young learners do that has been influenced by behaviorism? The first big influence is that teachers teach. In a behaviorist approach, adults condition children. This leads to a teacher-centered approach. The teacher-centered approach, of course, didn't start with behaviorism. The approach has been dominant in education for a very long time, especially where education has focused on preparation for the military, or for industrial society, or simply because it was normal in a hierarchical society. It has been challenged historically by many important thinkers, but teacher-centered approaches are still common sense for many teachers. Behaviorist approaches to teaching fitted comfortably into this long tradition of teaching children through a teacher-centered approach. Behaviorist techniques that are common when teaching young learners are repeat after me, drilling, or any kind of repetitive pattern practice, and the use of rewards, such as stickers. When a teacher says, "repeat after me," or drills the children, it is a kind of conditioning. It focuses on visible behavior, not on the reasons behind the behavior, and it often involves very little emotion, so it is clearly behavioristic. The use of extrinsic rewards such as stickers to condition behavior is also behavioristic. Let's look at these rewards a bit more closely. There is now convincing evidence that extrinsic rewards that are expected by children have a negative effect on intrinsic motivation. So, if you want your students to be self-motivated and go home and be interested in learning English, it is probably not a good idea to use these kinds of rewards, or at least not make them an important part of your lessons. Some of the earliest experiments on this were done with children who liked to draw pictures. When the children were given rewards for drawing, it was found that their interest in drawing decreased. There are also a lot of experiments where large classes of children are divided into two halves. Each half has the same lesson, but one half is taught with rewards, and the other half has no rewards. After the class finishes, it is found that the children in the class with no rewards are more likely to continue to be interested in the content of the lesson. So, if we focus on the immediate visible impact of rewards on getting the children to do what we want them to do in class, rewards like stickers may seem to be effective. But if we want the children to be interested in English away from the class and motivated to study at home, rewards are quite likely to have a negative effect. This is not to say that rewards are always wrong, but I think it is important to be aware of the negative aspects of rewards and take these into consideration. If we use rewards, we need to use them in a way that minimizes the possible damage to intrinsic motivation. For example, it is likely that surprise rewards rather than expected rewards will not have a negative effect. And if we use points in games, we can play down the importance of winning and losing, and give points for chance elements in games, such as throwing a dice, not for English ability. But I will look at these kinds of issues more closely in other workshops. The important point here is that the behaviorist idea of conditioning may produce apparently positive visible results in the short term, but may have a negative effect at a deeper level. This also applies to repeat after me and drilling as much as it does to rewards. Behaviorist teaching methods and teacher-centered methods in general are often criticized for treating children like blank slates who need to be taught in order to learn. In the classroom, this leads to a cause and effect approach to the introduction of new knowledge to children. I teach, and so you learn. You learn because I teach. A class may be very active with lots of fun, but new language targets are first introduced clearly by the teacher through repetition, modeling, demonstration, or explanation. All of these methods assume that children learn because teachers teach. If you think that when the baby is born, the baby is like a blank slate, then the behaviorist methodology may be appropriate for you. If you don't, then it would be best to seriously question this kind of methodology. There are various alternatives to seeing children as blank slates. One is to see children as being shaped by evolution and having natural potential. Another is to see a child as an active explorer, not a receiver of information. It is of course possible to combine these ideas, and that is what usually happens these days. How about mistakes? Are they good or bad when learning? What do you think? Most people these days seem to think that making mistakes when learning is good. We need to make mistakes in order to learn. If you agree with this, then this is another reason to reject the behaviorist view of learning, at least as it is commonly put into practice in the classroom. When a teacher says, "Repeat this sentence after me," the teacher is, in effect, also saying, "Repeat a correct sentence after me. Don't make mistakes." This focus on doing things correctly runs through much teacher-centered methodology. This workshop will be continued in the next video.